destructive and harmful. So your sex refers to the different biological and physiological characteristics of males and females, such as reproductive organs, chromosomes, and hormones. Gender refers to characteristics of women, men, girls, boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behaviors, roles associated with being woman, girl, or boy, as well as other relationships with other social
So,
constructs.
so yeah, this kind of definition was given to me by like LGBT pro people, but I want to know like if you would subscribe to them or like would you want to bring your own definitions so we can have like a fair common ground.
I mean, these are fairly close. I guess sex is depending on like there's like sex characteristics are a little complicated because you have like primary sex characteristics and secondary sex characteristics. Like your primary sex characteristics are going to be about what type of genitalia you have, those sorts of things, and then you have your secondary sex characteristics, which are usually like the physiological characteristics of males and females. So like having sharper jaw, bald, like jawbones in males, or having breasts, or size and weight differences. Those sorts of things are usually secondary as far as sex characteristics goes. So sex is a little bit different, depending on as long as you're referring to something different about the individuals. That's like the primary sex characteristics. Usually, that's the difference between the sexes, and then the secondary sex characteristics are a little bit different. But as long as you're consistent on that, then yeah, these don't seem overly objectionable.
Okay, great. Would you like to start with the opening statement or I should start? I have like a very short one.
I don't really care to do too much of an opening statement. More so, I want to kind of start with the question. I'm not entirely sure how something can manage to be without meaning and also destructive and harmful. And so I'm looking for, is there any way you can give me something analogous that manages to not have any meaning to the term, like there's no meaning to it, it doesn't mean anything, but also manages to be like harmful and destructive. And I don't know how something can simultaneously, like I don't know how anything could ever in simultaneity be both of those things. Like it seems like in order to be destructive and harmful, it's going to need to have some sort of a referent, which means it has some kind of meaning. But without that meaning, it doesn't seem like it could be destructive and harmful. Like it wouldn't have any
Look,
capacity, right?
fair contention. That's a fair contention. But like the problem is gender itself, it is meaningless. And I would say like the thing that we have from the definition. So, but when like a progressive society try to put this meaningless and give it like a shape and like a hollow definition, it starts to become destructive and harmful. And we can explore this through the debate. If I can start with my opening statement, that is like super short.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm someone from the Middle East and the Gulf states to be specific, and I have been harmed, affected by the trans movement, um, mainly due to my career, which is like in gaming and media, and we here in this region have been denied like two huge opportunities from huge studios, huge gaming companies like Epic Gaming and Ubisoft. So the first one is Epic Gaming had $1 billion deal in the Gulf states to bring like League of Legends tournaments and like other events here, but due to pressures by the trans movement, because we don't support it, it got canceled. Ubisoft also had like a World Cup of their famous game, Rainbow Six, where like all the big teams were going to come here in the UAE. Like like millions, $1 million deal event, but it was canceled because of the pressures of the trans movement. So from these two things that harmed us here, I tried like to explore the transgender movement, and I found it that is meaningless, destructive, and harmful, even for the progressive society. Usually people transition through two means, either socially or medically. And I want to explore, start with socially, then move to the medically, where like the medically I will be like the tougher position because we need like medical experts, unless we agree on our statements. That's it.
Okay. So let's get started with the main thing is here that you said that I found interesting was that you've been harmed by the transgender movement. Now, I want to dissect that because, as I understood, the contention was that transgenderism, which is going to be distinct from there being any sort of movement associated with transgenderism, but that transgenderism is harmful. But let's say we do, I allow some sort of conflation here, and you say something like, okay, so the transgender movement somehow cost you money so that you couldn't receive a job from it. Now, um,
Opportunities and entertainment, yes.
I'm going to be blunt. I don't think that that even constitutes harm in any real way. And the reason I don't think that is because if you are being, say, for instance, you're being like objectionable to trans stuff, right? Like if your company is somehow objectionable to trans stuff, and they're like, hey, we don't want to buy from them, right? The you're asking for a company to take the hit, like trans people won't buy from them when they would like for people to purchase from them in place of you taking the hit, or you could just change your biases and then you wouldn't be faced with such issues at all, right? So if the harm is birthed from your biases in the same way that like a mom and dad might feel upset that their kid is trans, that upset is a type of harm, but it's not birthed from the person being trans. It's birthed from their own behavior in the same way yours is. So if your company is behaving in a negative way towards trans people, it's not the trans people that's hurt you. It's the other way around. And
The
now you're
country.
just facing some repercussions from it, right? Yeah, and if it's your country, then I mean that sucks too. But your country can also change its perspective and change its behavior, and then they wouldn't suffer those sorts. So or like a repercussion for being harmful is not the same as being harmed. I think those two things are going to be totally like they're going to be totally divorced from one another. And I also find it, you also have to divorce the transgender movement from transgenderism. The topic of the discussion was transgenderism is both meaningful or meaningless and harmful. And I'm just want to get started with kind of understanding how can something manage to not have meaning but also be harmful? How is that even possible?
Sure. But before that, I would like to say that you were like suggesting that, hey, our countries should be like more open for like the trans movements, so we don't like get punished by having huge deals, $1 billion deals, opportunities, and events denied from us. The problem is if I succeeded in proving that the transgenderism itself is a harmful stuff, that means that what was done to us, it's almost like a siege, an unfair siege, a denial of job opportunities from something harmful in itself. I would compare this to how like the British Empire destroyed the Chinese, the prosperous Chinese country in the 1800s, when they said you have to accept dealing with opium, and you have to let like our merchants deal with opium in your country. But when China refused, um, they they had a blockade on them, and yeah, they destroyed the country. They unleashed like one of the most unfair wars, and we call it like the opium wars. So
One,
yeah.
I don't necessarily find that very analogous, but I do think that if you're going to engage with trade with the West, and the West puts pressures on you to be one way or another, I mean, it's an unfortunate position for you to be in, but if there are other opportunities, feel free to take the other opportunities, right? But the companies here are not going to take the hit for you. But just because your country needs the work and you want the money, they're not going to say, you know what, cool, we'll go, we'll let you guys make our game, and then we'll just take the financial hit when people don't want to pony up at the end of the production because it harms trans people or they're against your country or whatever
Yeah, if
for
I
that.
succeeded.
Now, that's not again that my analogy though is that this isn't actually harm to you or to your country. It's the other way around. It's like if your country were putting people to death for being trans. Like I'm not sure what country you're from. Is if that's something that your country does, then this would be justice, right? It would be just for you to not have those sorts of deals and contracts. Are you from a country that like has some sort of either capital punishment or other like jailing for
So
trans
I don't
people?
believe, I don't believe so. Putting them to death,
Well, what about
because
jail? Does your country jail them?
maybe, probably,
Okay,
I'm
see
not
that
sure.
that would
Not
be
sure about that. But now, if we substantiated the harm, it seems like, yeah, it's like saying, like, the Chinese, are you going to jail the opium dealers? Yes, it should be, because
Well, there's
like
a
they are harming
disanalogy
society,
there.
they are destroying society, and like actually opium managed to destroy China before like they launched the war against it and destroy China. So now we can move like to how social transitioning is meaningless, and then if giving some meanings, some hollow meaning, becomes destructive and harmful. Would you like to explore that?
Well, before we take the hop and the leap over there, I want to establish this analogy between the opium trade, and
Yeah.
transgenderism, because that's going to be a member of the part of the contention is that I don't think that transgenderism is harmful in the same way that opium is harmful, right? So, if you could, can you help me establish what exactly is the harm that you think that transgenderism has on a culture and a society? Can you help me kind of understand? Because in order for it to be analogous, you're going to have to establish
Yes.
that sort of relationship.
Yeah. For you, like to break analogy, or like for me to prove an analogy, we have now to start exploring the topic. And now we should start with the social transitioning. From
All
that,
right.
if I
How is it?
succeeded,
How is it
we
harmful?
can. So, social transitioning, with for like a trans person transitioning either from the class of woman or man, I deem it as absurd and meaningless. Why? Because all the roles, all the expectations can be done by either of the two categories, especially in progressive countries just like Canada and USA. There would be like very, very tiny few cases, but that would be dependent on sex. But I don't know if you're gonna notice it or not. But yeah,
I'm not. I'm not understanding. What's the harm here exactly?
so for someone to transition socially, he need to change his expectations and roles that his society forces on his category, right? He have like such roles, characteristics, and expectations for his category, either woman and man. And for him to transition, he want to break from category one and move to category two. I would say this is meaningless, because if you are in category one or two, you can do anything. You can do all the expectations, all the roles, and all the behaviors, and no one should stop you. And you should not like satisfy someone for transitioning.
In your country, is it socially acceptable to wear a dress as a
I am
male?
so I'm here. I'm gonna discuss in a progressive country. So we're gonna discuss it in Canada and USA. Forget my country.
No, I mean, well, the harm that you were referencing was in your country, and now suddenly you want to switch
Harm,
locations.
that harm that already, yeah, that
No,
harm, that harm
no,
that we
no.
are.
We're gonna discuss
Yeah,
it. We're gonna be I want to keep things consistent. Like, if we're gonna be discussing in the
I
terms
know,
of like
I know.
of your
It's in my
country,
position.
and like this is how I've been harmed by it. Let's
I
not suddenly
I'm
switch.
by.
Let's not
So
suddenly switch. Okay, so
we
is
are
it
not.
socially acceptable where you're from for a man to wear a dress? Because the claim is that you can do anything in either category. Is that the case where you're from?
So that's not the topic, and I would say that you are jumping because. So, but let's satisfy this here in the Gulf states. We say gender is sex, sex is gender, or like there is actually no gender. But now, how I want to prove like this is like just like opium by saying, hey, I'm gonna explore it in a progressive society. And this is also written in my position. I'm gonna attack it in a progressive society and prove it that it's actually meaningless. So in
Well, I
Canada
want
or
to. I want
USA,
my question
in
answered.
Canada, in, in a Canada or USA, transitioning for behaviors, roles, or expectations is actually meaningless.
Well, I asked
So
a
can
question.
you?
I asked a question.
Yes.
The question was, is it socially acceptable, for example, for a man to wear a dress in your culture? Is that considered socially acceptable?
No, because we link it to sex, but this is not the topic. We are
No,
now
that
gonna,
is the that is well. That's gonna
that
be
is
that's
not
gonna
the
be
topic.
constitutive of your claim, right? So
That
if
is
you
not.
claim, well,
Nope.
your
My
claim
claim is
was
about progressive society.
Well, then why were we talking about the harm to your culture? What was the point of
because
that? That seems like
because
totally off
that's
topic then.
no, because that's what is trying to be inserted in our. So we say, I'm going to say, this trans movement has destroyed, ruining the progressive society, and
Do you
now
know
they
what a
want to
special
push
pleading
it.
fallacy is?
Wait, wait. So this thing is destroying, harming the progressive societies, and now they want to push it to us. We are fighting back. We are resisting this opium to insert us, and we have sex and gender, the same thing. But now, in my position, you can read it. I want to explore it in progressive societies. So
So it seems like you're running
we,
from the question, and I want to
I'm
point this
not
out
running
because
from the question. I'm
if
not
you
running
could
from the
if
question.
you could
It seems that you are running
just
away from the position. You can
relax.
read the position.
Do you know what a special pleading fallacy is?
No,
So a special pleading fallacy is when you ignore information that's disfavorable to the proposition that you just held was true. And the proposition that I'm pushing back on is that you can in any way as a male or female you can fulfill the roles of either or in any way that you please, right? Now,
no,
you
no,
started with talking about
no, wrong.
your country and how it harms you personally, and this anecdotal sort of thing about it. But then when I push back and I go, but wait a second, in your culture, is it okay for this? You suddenly want to dismiss that and say, no, 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 my culture is not relevant. This is a special pleading fallacy. You're going to be ignoring information
Yep.
that's detrimental to your position.
You think that we have like LGBT movements here?
Probably they might be a little more low
We
key.
don't. We don't. And then, if you read in my position, I wanted this whole debate to prove it about progressive society. So when I started, I said why I started to get interested. Someone from the Middle East and the Gulf states get interested in this thing that is trying to be inserted. It hasn't been inserted. Like we don't like have trans people like walking around, being like celebrities, just like the West.
That tends to
So
happen when
it
you put people
seems.
in
So
jail.
it seems now you don't want to discuss it in progressive societies. It seems that you are don't want like this debate to happen.
Well, no. So, if you're going to start the conversation with talking about how it harms you and your country, and then
Yes.
suddenly when I point out something that's going on in your country, and you're like, no, that's a different topic. Well, then what the
That's
fuck was the
actually a
point of the
different.
beginning of the debate? Why
To
were you
tell you
bringing that up? What?
to tell you to tell you that it's can be a harmful thing, just like opium. And then you said, okay, we need the analogy. We need like to prove the analogy. Is it analogous or not? So now, when I prove that when it's like rampant, when it has been accepted by the government, okay, in the progressive countries, just like Canada and USA, it's destructive. Then I can
I think I've held
create,
your feet to the fire on the topic, and
and
go
then I
ahead
can
with
create
your.
the analogy that it's just like opium. But it seems now you are not, you don't want to
Well,
discuss it.
go
Do you
ahead. Go
think
ahead
our
with your.
government?
I think I've held your feet to the fire enough. I've called you out on special pleading fallacy, but if you could just go ahead with your
No,
argument with
no,
regards
actually,
to
no.
that.
I just like
Go ahead.
successfully showed how you are like completely wrong.
I don't think so.
Probably, yeah,
Go ahead
probably
with your what's
not.
your argument that it's like opium? What's the
No,
analogy?
no, wait. You just forgot my question because like you distracted us. So focus on my position. I'm going to prove that it's meaningless, destructive, and harmful even for the progressive society. Okay, progressive society, just like Canada and USA. It seems that it's meaningless because someone transitioning from category man to category women or women and man, changing your behaviors and expectations, it's meaningless because in a man and a woman, you can do anything. No one can have force you on behaviors and expectations unless now you can give me unique behaviors and expectations that is exclusive for a man and a woman in Canada and USA. That would be amazing.
I mean, yeah. So where I'm
Or-
from, at least, it's not usually socially acceptable for a male to wear a dress, especially in like public scenarios. It's just like people find it peculiar. So that would be one that only women are socially accepted doing.
oh,
And I live in a highly gay area, by the way. This is in an extraordinarily gay area, not just some normal area. It's still considered largely socially unacceptable. So there's at least one example. Did you want more?
wait, there are like so many mistakes that you made. So first, we need to say from the definitions, sex have labels. Sex, the labels of sex is male and female, and the gender labels is man, woman, boy, girl, right?
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so when I say like in your society, seems that you have roles and expectations for man, woman. What are they?
Well,
Name like few of them. It's not like an endless series.
I don't really see a point in like listing them off, but like
No,
I
no.
just gave
Li-
one.
List three, four of them that someone would transition for. So I'm
Um,
transitioning.
let's go for another one. It's something like makeup. Usually, males are not allowed to wear makeup, or at least it's socially frowned upon.
Round. Okay,
Um,
sure.
some other issues are like I don't think that it's like when we're talking about
So give me
transition, like
behaviors.
when we're
I can.
talking about if I could
I'm gonna
finish,
satisfy. I'm gonna satisfy
if
the
I could
dress.
finish if I could finish saying what I was saying.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry.
So, um, but it's not always just like a totally social effect why people choose to transition, right? Like part of the reason that people transition is for their self-image. So it's not just so that they can wear dresses and put on makeup, it's for their self-image. And I think that there's a mistake in assuming that it's just for this social policy sort of thing. But that's just not what it's for.
It seems. It seems that it's now a bit sad that you are limiting women to makeup and dresses. But in the gender definition, it seems that there are actually roles, behaviors, and expectations. So, what are like there are behaviors and roles for women and men that you would transition for in a progressive society?
Some of them are like the sexual roles, like for
Sex.
instance, actual
So,
having sex.
so you
Um,
bring.
but
So you just.
again,
So
remember the reason people transition doesn't necessarily have to do with, like, for instance, these sex roles and gender roles. It has to do with a self-image, a self-perception. So I don't really see this as being majorly relevant. But I'm just curious, how is it harmful? Like that's the real question I keep asking.
but wait, that's a jump. Don't you think there are like expected roles and behaviors for man and woman in a progressive society? It's there in the definition.
I mean, yeah, sometimes there are, just depending on,
So
like, they're a little less
what would you,
stringent, but they're still
so
there.
let's say you have a neighbor that transition because to satisfy one of these behaviors and roles. Name any of them. Name one or many.
I've never met a single trans person who's ever transitioned for this reason.
I know
I
because
can't
it's
think of
meaning.
one.
I know because it's meaningless. You so in the
Well,
definition of
they
gender, it said
transition
wait,
for their self-image, so this isn't even relevant to the discussion.
no, no. I just thought like this is one of the first steps to prove that it's meaningless. In the definition of gender, they say like they have behaviors and roles, and like the LGBT movement spreads like oh these are like the expectations of women, these are like the expectations of men, and they name them like they have like a huge set of series. Like hey, these are like the expectations of women and men, and sometimes they change. You said dress and makeup, but I'm now asking you, give me roles and behaviors. Don't you think there is unique roles and behaviors for man and woman in a progressive society?
And well, I gave one of them, which is like the sex position, those sorts of things, penetrative versus
So
non-penetrative.
sex, you are mixing gender and sex. So I'm talking
No,
about now.
I don't mean sex in the way you're using. I mean sex is in the procreative act, like the actual sex position, having like sex, like
Have,
copulating. The word copulation is not the same as the word sex, as in like what genitalia you have.
okay, you still did not give me any behaviors and roles associated with being a man or a woman.
That was a behavior just now.
Was it?
You think that like your sex position, like for instance, if a woman was on top of you putting something inside of you, would that not be a behavior that a woman would like not do for you? Or I mean, I don't know, maybe you guys are real kinky over there. I don't know.
What do you mean, like
The
in top of
penetrative
you?
role in sexual copulation. That is a behavior. Are you
That's the
where are you confused?
okay. So, would there be anyone transitioning their gender just like to be on top during sex? And this is, by the way, I'm going to entertain it, but these are not like the behaviors and roles that the gender definition or like the gender society speaks of. You are completely off, but like I have to entertain it. But is there
Yeah,
like someone?
there are those
Is
that
there someone
do
transitioning their
transition.
gender? Okay, someone transitioning their gender.
There are
Hmm.
those that do transition
I
in
want
that
to be
way,
on top.
but
I want
not
to
for
be
that
on top
reason.
during sex. Therefore, I'm gonna transition my gender from man to woman or woman to man. This is absurd and meaningless. So give me other behaviors and roles.
I don't see how that's absurd or meaningless. Like, how is it meaningless? Do you not like understand the words I'm using in some way?
No, no, but like, why would you transition to be on
Well,
top
that I've
during sex?
explicitly said several times. They don't transition for these reasons. They transition, and they will say this, for their self image. It has
For the
zero
sake
to do with the rest of that.
for
Everything
the
else
sake
that
of
you've
time.
said so far has just been not. I keep saying none of this
No,
is relevant. I'm trying to
I know.
entertain you, but that's not the reason they identify why they transition. So it doesn't
So
make sense to ask who transitions so that they can have this sex role. Well, that's not the totality. That the reason that the transition is usually has to do with self image, and not all trans people decide to
so
transition. It's just
for
a
the sake
subset of them that do.
for the sake of time, I'm shocked that you are not like familiar with this. So when you go and ask an LGBT, what is like the
I
expected
am
role?
LGBT, you stupid fuck.
Wait,
Shut up.
okay, you are like a bad one, and I'm gonna educate you now.
Yeah, I'm a
So,
bad one.
so when you say the behaviors and roles, they're gonna say, "Hey, the man is expected to be the bread earner. The man is expected like have like to be the aggressive one. The man should have like the short hair." You actually find this, and like the woman should be like the bread cooker. The woman should take care of the children. The woman should like be the one that have like the long hair. If you look up gender expectations, you would find these. And
Do
I
you
am
think?
telling you, and I am telling you, all the behaviors and all the roles. So if you think of one or infinite set, it can be done by a man and a woman. So you do not transition yourself to fulfill an expectation or a behavior or role because that is just adhering to stereotypes.
Well,
Literally,
that's what I said. Is that that's not the reason
I
they
know,
give why they
I
transition
know.
at all.
So
No one ever said
yes,
that. So you're just like you're
so
setting up this straw man of the
I'm not
LGBT
a straw
position,
man.
right? Like this is a total
No, you
straw
are
man.
moving away from the trans movement.
You're going. Hey, look, here's all these reasons why they should be transitioning, but they're not transitioning for those reasons, and they're going, well, duh, yeah, that's not why we transition. Like why
I,
trans people transition is for this is a matter of like self image and self perception. So like some trans people don't feel the need to transition because they don't feel like they don't have any sort of like gender dysphoria, or maybe they just don't want to do it either way. They don't want to go through the social pressure of it, whatever their reasoning behind it. But the
what is
reasons that
social
they
pressure?
choose to transition have to do with
What?
things like self perception and self image, gender dysphoria, and those sorts of things.
So you
And that
mentioned
has zero to do with anything you've listed so far. So you're setting up a straw man of, oh look, here's why they transition. Oh look, and those things are meaningless. Okay, well, yeah, but that's not why any of them identify why they transition. It's
sure,
just dumb.
sure. No, but like I'm just shocked that you are so disconnected with the LGBT and the trans movement. So a lot of the trans people transition to move away from the social process that you just said uttered. They want to fulfill the expectations of the opposite gender. But I'm like shocked that you are like not familiar with this.
I mean, that's
You
a
are like so
secondary
disconnected, and I
consequence
don't,
of it.
I'm questioning now if you are like equipped to have this debate, but it's fine.
Well, I'm wondering
So
what's your experience with the
you
LGBT
just said,
community? Because I live in what's called a gayborhood. Like I live
I
this
know,
shit, and I'm telling you why they
sure,
transition.
sure, sure. So what is the
I'm
social
like
pressure?
I'm informing you. You seem like you're going, oh look, here's all these reasons why they transition. No, that's not why they say they transition. Ask any trans person. It has to do with self perception and self image. So the way in
We
which
can
they
ask,
see themselves.
we can ask them. The majority of them due to social pressures, which you uttered after gender dysphoria. You said,
Wait,
"Oh, they transition. Sometimes they don't transition because gender dysphoria or social pressures." It seems that they transition to social pressures.
well, no,
What?
they don't transition due to social press because like usually there's a high social expectation to not transition in most areas anyways. Like it's kind of seen it's looked down upon. And usually has some major repercussions, particularly with your family. I
There
live
are
in the southeast where it's very like Bible heavy, Bible thumpers, and so a lot of times it's looked down on for you to transition. For you to say you're trans is already kind of on the fritz of things. To be gay is really bad too, and then but actually
okay. That's
transition,
irrelevant.
actually going through that is going to be a totally different sort of ball game with your family, and it's tragic really. But so it's like social pressures keep them from transitioning. They're not social pressures are not why they transition.
Oh, Okay, this is false. Do you think that there are a lot of trans people transition to fulfill society expectations?
No, I said the reverse. They
Okay,
they
that is
usually
another.
trans they
So that
usually
is
they
you are
usually
so disconnected.
transition in like a
Okay,
in
so you are
conjunction
not
with that.
familiar with the trans movement. You are so disconnected.
No,
Probably
like
you are.
Tart is
No,
right.
wait. This is one. Please.
I know, Flo. This guy's saying some crazy shit. He's totally disconnected from the topic. Like
Yeah, no,
he's
you are so disconnected
I am gay, you
from the
stupid bitch.
LGBT.
I'm
Okay, I
informing.
know you can claim it. You can
I
claim
don't
it.
usually
But
get
you are
mad
like
in
so
debate, but I
disconnected.
am gay, and you're
If
from
you
the
don't
Middle East.
know
I
that
live in
they transition to fulfill expectations, that I would say that most of them, so it's sad. I have to like to tell you why they transition and like what is the behaviors and the roles. The bread earner and the bread cooker and like taking care of children. It is frowned upon for a man to take care of children. Literally, that's literally like one of the
Sure.
main aspects of gender expectations. A role. Like go look it up. Go look it up. Go look at
Sure.
LGBT.
Share your
LGBT.
sources, really.
Take
Just share
five,
your
take five
sources.
minutes. Take 5 minutes and go like Google, like search like gender expectations and roles. Do you want me to satisfy you with the makeup and dresses because you just limited women to dresses
Like I
and
said, that's just not why they transitioned. Like you're factually wrong. But let's move on to the next part of the debate. Let's talk about
okay,
how it is.
so you
Let's
said
talk
so one
about
of the things
let's
that you
talk
listed.
about. I just listened to you talk for like 5 minutes. Can you just chill? So let's talk
Yes.
about the actual harm to the society itself. What sort of harm do you think it has to a society? And if so, like just kind of give me a rundown. What's the harm?
But we are still in the meaningless.
Well,
I can satisfy it
like I
in
said,
so many ways,
let's
and we
go to the
know, and
harm.
it
I
seems
keep
that,
asking for the
and
harm.
it seems that it has been substantiated that it's meaningless. But you are like completely like ignorant about the expectations and roles. But yeah, so earlier you were speaking of about hey, someone transitioned because of wearing he want to wear dress and makeup. Is it okay in a progressive
That is
society to be?
not what I said.
You
That
actually
is
said that.
not what I said.
You actually said that, and you were
That is
asking about the
not what
Middle
I
East,
said.
and you
I'll
were
just go ahead
asking.
and correct you. I'll go ahead and correct you. You
Go
asked
ahead.
me for examples of roles that the genders take and different things, characteristics, and behaviors that the different genders tend to take that are not socially acceptable for the other gender within that culture, right? So
It's not a,
some of those expectations and some of those things that they can't do, like for instance, it's usually not acceptable for men in my culture for the most part to wear dresses in public or wear makeup and those sorts of things.
that's a
Those were
presentation, not
just
a.
simple examples. That's not why someone transitions. In fact, I explicitly said several times this has nothing to do with the reason why people transition. They
So,
transition as a result of self-perception and self-image. It's an affirmation surgery for their self-image. That's it.
so
Now,
why did you
but
mention? Why
I'm
did you
asking,
mention
and I'm going to
with the
ask. I've
society?
asked since the beginning, and I want an explicit answer this time. I want an explicit answer. What is the harm to the culture that they occupy? What's the harm? Please list out the things you think are harmful.
I'm gonna tell you. But wait, I'm gonna hammer on the meaningless. Just give me.
No, for fuck's sake, just tell me what the
Give
harm
me,
is. I've been
wait,
asking since the
wait.
beginning.
So why did you ask about like someone? Why would the society, a Middle Eastern society, wouldn't accept like someone wearing dresses and makeup?
Well, the reason I asked that is because of your claim. You claimed that in the culture that anyone can do fulfill any of these other roles, and I was like, well, no, not really. That's
Oh,
just
that's
not
a
true.
gender presentation. I swear to God, that's a gender presentation. You did not do your homework at all. But okay, it seems that you said in your society it would be frowned upon for a man to wear makeup and dresses. Is this correct or not?
But yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Okay, so in your society that have like a down look to someone wearing makeup and dresses. These people have like stereotypes or like expect rejection of a man doing it. Do you think these people automatically accept it when this person claims that he's a trans person? So if a
Yeah.
trans
I mean,
person, no,
there's
no,
there's a
that's
different
literally
perception at least where I'm from.
that's no, unless like he completely hide it and like never says, "Oh, I'm never trans." No, he's actually gonna put himself in further harms, in further like bad, further like worse reaction from people. The people that are not comfortable with a man wearing
Well,
makeup
as
and
I
dresses, wearing dresses and makeup. Wait, look at this society, group of people. We like look frown upon someone wearing dresses and makeup, a man. But when he claimed to say, I'm a trans woman, they say, oh, we accept it. No, there are further bad expectations. There's further bad behavior gonna be even worse for that person.
Well,
That
this seems like a
look, that
strange
frown
claim.
upon, wait, that frown upon look will not be cured by transgenderism. This is the final like nail in the coffin of meaningless. Let's go to destructive and harmful.
Okay,
The
well, wait a
things.
second. I thought you were just supposed to
Okay,
be giving me something about destructive and harmful, because what you said there was basically that the culture and society is will harm the trans person, and I'm going like, well, wait, I thought you were trying. What's the harm from being transgender, like transgenderism, to the culture? What's the harm there? Is my question
sure.
that I still can't seem to get an
So
answer for.
with the last point, I hit with the meaningless and the harm. So if a trans person was if a man want to wear dresses and makeup frowned upon, he will not like have a magical cure to how society look upon him, and they will never like be frowned upon if he says, "Oh, I'm now a trans woman." No, first it's meaningless. Second, he will be go and enter. He will experience further like punishment or like frown upon. So this is one of the harms. The second harms is that most of like the trans movement transition to satisfy expectations. If you want to do the homework and like Google this up, Google my claim, they actually do it. They transition to satisfy, to escape the social pressure of the social expectations and
How
go
about
to the other
disregard force?
and go to the other category. So a man, this is like a very famous, super famous example of the LGBT or like trans movement. A man would be frowned upon if he was like the children carer at home. What they suggest, this magical solution, is he transition. When he transition, hey, I'm now like the society can accept me. First, no, they will not accept him. Second thing, that person that transitioned is cementing that taking care of children is only for women. It's like a stereotype, and these trans people gonna go and cement these stereotypes. Let's say for women cannot like be the bread earner. It's like frowned upon. Even in the progressive society, they have these LGBT expectation and roles. Okay, she want to be aggressive. A team leader, literally, a team leader is one of like the man expectations. Okay, this woman said, I want to be aggressive. I want to be a bread earner and the team leader. I'm going to transition to escape the pressure of society. When she do that transition, she's harming all the other women that did not transition by cementing that bad stereotypes.
Okay,
That's it. I
so
have
one, I would want some kind of a study indicating that this is the reason they indicate they transition, because this is going to contradict what you said before, right? So the reason that you said they transitioned before was something about like those other sort of gender roles. It seems like you were saying something about like fulfilling the ones that I was listing off, and then now you're saying that
any
the
role.
reason that people are transitioning is because of like these separate set of gender roles. It seems a little peculiar, but more importantly, the weird part for me was the first part where you said like that when they transition, people cause them more harm. So it seems like if there's social pressure to transition and then there's social pressure where they're being harmed, I'm not sure which one's going to be which one's which. Like, are they being pressured into transitioning and then being harmed for having transitioned? Because it seems like the social pressure can only really be one or the other. Like, it's either the case that they're being socially pressured into transitioning, or they're being socially pressured against it by being negatively impacted for the harm. But then the harm also seems not be that the harm doesn't seem to be to the society, right? The claim was that the harm is to the society, not to the trans person. It seems like in every case you've given so far, the harm is to the trans person, but not to the culture or to the society, or to the destruction or detriment of the society. So my main question is going to be, which direction is the pressure in direction of? Is it the case that they are pressured by society to transition? And if so, I want studies on that, because I don't think that that's the case. I think that's just patently going to be false. And
Sure.
then also, I'd be curious to understand how exactly you think there's pressures in both direction. Like, for instance, wouldn't that be like if people were harming people for being trans? Wouldn't that be a social pressure to not transition? Because once you transition, you're going to be socially harmed. Like that would be a social pressure to not transition, at least as far as I understand it. So I think that's going to be like
I'm
a conflicting sort of thing.
I'm happy. I'm happy with now how like you are starting to realize the absurdity of being a trans slowly. But
That's
you
that's
said earlier you said I did not draw society harms that come from transgendering. When I told you that the man transitioning to become a woman to be like a child carer, he harmed all the men that did not transition, all the men in society, by cementing the stereotypes that only women be the child carer and men cannot be child carer. And I said the woman that transitioned to become a man, to be like a team leader, aggressive, short hair, she's harming all the women that did not transition by cementing these bad stereotypes, all the women in society. So I have already did that.
like
Now,
I said. That's
think
not
that
why they
you reached. Wait,
transition.
I need to finish my response. So now we need to see if you would accept this reality or like you connect to reality or not. Does trans people transition to fulfill these expectations or not? If you reject it, I would say that you are completely ignorant about the trans movement, and I'm shocked.
I mean, you
Does
might
trans
think,
people, does a
but that's
huge
not what I.
portion, does a
That is
huge portion, does a huge portion of trans people transition to fulfill expectations and roles or not?
no, no, they do
Okay,
not.
you are
That is not the
okay.
reason they transition. Like I said,
If
they
disregarded,
transition, and they will all tell you the same thing. You ask a question, I'm gonna answer it. So the reason that trans people will identify why they transition has to do with self perception and self image. They are transitioning as a self affirmation, not in order to fulfill certain roles or whatever. Those are the roles that they see themselves occupying, sure, but that's not the primary reason they transition. They transition as a result of usually it's as a discomfort with the self and their self perception and self image, and so the gender affirmation surgery is to help with that and alleviate that stress and suffering. That's the
what is this?
overall overarching. Now, like I said, I would like some substantiation of your claim that
What is the self image?
there's a pressure to transition from the culture
What
and
is,
from society, and I would like a substantiation of the numbers that that's predominantly why they say they
I,
transition has to do with social pressures. So if you
I'm,
can't
I'm,
provide those, then I'll take that as
huh,
a
it's,
I'll just take that
yeah, sure.
as a
I don't
concession.
need. I'm sure about it. But anyway, so the
Well,
keyword
but do
that you are
you
missing,
have
the
papers or
keyword.
something?
So let me steal man. So let me steal man your argument. The keyword that you are missing is gender identity. You literally just need to say gender identity and like save yourself. You need to say, oh, there just need to be their gender identity as man, woman. But this is also against the definition that you are reading. Gender is like include norms, behaviors, and roles associated with being a woman or man. But now you are hammering on no, they don't care about this and they don't transition about it. So you are completely disconnected about the trans movement. Um, and you say only about identity. Okay, what is this identity? This identity, we're gonna go back to man and woman. And then we're gonna go, I'm gonna ask you, what is a man and what is a woman? And that is a trap that you are like heading to.
Can we just maybe get the papers on the claims you made? Like I'm just wanting some substantiation of those claims before
No,
we move.
that's fine. That's fine. Uh, I'm not gonna bring anything, but you are just, I'm gonna say the majority of trans people, that's actually it. That's literally in the definition. They transition through to satisfy expectations and norms. If you are disconnected and like you see identity, you are putting yourself in another trap. Okay, what do you mean by identity? By identity, you are adhering to woman and man. Okay, what makes a woman and man? And then you're gonna like fall into the ultimate trans trap that I didn't want it to start with. I could have started with, hey, what is a woman? Boom, end of debate. But
Where
then like,
is the? I asked for like some substantiation of your claim. Like
uh,
I'm looking for a
I'm
paper.
not here to educate you about the trans movements. I just made a claim. You made a claim. Uh, you can like verify it later on.
What? That's not how any of this works. like if you're gonna make a claim in a debate, I presume that you're gonna have some kind of like some kind of studies or
Shocked.
something
I'm
that's gonna show
shocked.
it,
Okay,
right?
I'm shocked that you can't even like understand like the definition itself. So you said okay, let's go to you said they don't transition for roles, behaviors, and expectations. The most like excruciating mistake about the trans movement. Okay, you said they trans because of themselves. You did not say gender identity. What do you mean by that?
All I said was that they transition in
Yes,
order to affirm their self image. It's a
the
self image.
identity. Swear to God, it's the best word is gender identity. I'm still imagining your argument. Come on, use it.
It's a self perception of self identity. I don't
Self-perception.
see it. Yeah, it's the way
Okay,
they see themselves.
self-perception. Okay, no problem. We will not use gender identity. The self-perception of either man or woman,
Well, it's
and
gender
they
identity
are moving from the
observation.
self-perception. So they are moving from the self-perception of man or woman or vice versa. What does that mean actually? What
Wait,
is the self-perception of man and woman?
it's the
Characteristics.
way in which they perceive themselves, right? Like, so the way in which they, when they look in the mirror, the person that they see in the reflection is different than what they want to see, right? So, like for
I know.
instance, when they're having gender dysphoria, there's a disconnect between their experience of the gender. Like they feel as though they would fit better into one category or the other. They feel as though they would enjoy life better in that other category, and those sorts of
Mm,
things are reason giving for them to take the steps to transition. But it's not in this case that they're not transitioning so that they can fulfill those roles. It's because they already see themselves as being those roles and those things. It's the other way around, really.
Can I repeat your point to see if I heard it correctly? It says that when they look at their self in the mirror, uh, they want like they see themselves as different to what their current class. If they are like man, they're gonna see themselves as woman, and they're gonna transition to become a trans woman. Correct? Is this fair?
For the most part, yeah, that's
Sure,
kind of the idea.
sure. Okay. So you have a neighbor. He at like 27 years old. He was a man. He saw himself as a woman,
Hmm.
and now he's transitioning from the category of man to the category of woman. What is the category of woman that he's transitioning to?
I guess probably the one that we were talking about before.
What is it?
I can look back the exact definition that you gave. Let me look. Hold on.
No,
Put it somewhere.
it's not good for you. What is
I
a
don't
woman?
actually. I don't think we did. Did we even define like
I
the
know.
specific? It's like we defined gender, but we didn't define each gender, right?
What is a woman?
I think a woman is like it's a social construct that we have that has to do with the behaviors, roles, and ways in which people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You just reached what I was trying to tell you for the last 30 minutes. So this person, he's looking at himself in the mirror. He want to go to women by transitioning his behaviors, expectations, and roles.
Well,
You
no,
just
you
you
just okay. The
just
one
said
that wasn't there,
take your
right?
time.
The way they see themselves. It's not that. It's not about fulfilling those roles. It's the way they see themselves. Like that's where you made the mistake.
Oh no, wait.
Like focus on it.
So
You see that there's a
yes,
difference. Let's say, for instance, if I see myself as already being a farmer, like a farmer takes certain things. They go and they do certain things. They plant seeds. They till the land and whatever. And I already see myself as that. But society doesn't really look at me in that way. And there's this disjointing between the way in which I perceive myself. Even though being a farmer is obviously not an identity. There's this distinction between where I the way I see myself and the way everyone else sees me.
sure,
And I'm going, well, but I'm already this thing,
sure.
right? Like I'm already this way on the
Yes,
inside.
okay. But you
And
are
then
moving.
I go to say, well,
But
you know what? I'm going to transition my behavior outwardly and everywhere else to reflect what I already see myself as being.
yes,
But
because
there's
you
a
are
difference
moving to a
between that
category.
and saying,
Okay, you are moving Tart. Let me like still man it. You are moving to a category from man to woman. Your neighbor saw himself in the mirror, so he's now moving to the category of woman. You don't say like, oh, like this is just perception. You are moving to the category of woman, and now we need to have a meaning of the category of woman. You just say like self-perception. No, women have to have like a meaning in society. You have to
well,
do
no,
that. You are
it's going to be like
forced.
this.
You are forced to do that. I'm sorry. That's the problem with the trans movement.
I don't see the issue, but I'm more intrigued by the idea of the way in which it harms people rather than trying to like go through the steps of whether or not it makes sense. I'm far more intrigued by the concept of
But I
harm,
want
and
to
I don't
entertain
think
your example. I want to entertain now your
if I
example.
could, I do let you talk quite a bit, but I do want to sort of control the conversation so that we can move on from one topic to another. We have a habit of in this room of staying on
I
one
just
topic
moved.
too long.
I just
So
moved.
if we
So
could, if
Tart,
you
I
could,
moved
if you
from
could stop
meaningless.
talking for God's sakes, dude.
I am sorry. I am sorry.
Quiet. So I want to understand now the list of harm that you gave seemed to be more harmful to the trans person than to the culture or society that they occupy. Now you said that by moving and making this move, which I don't think the reasons that you gave are substantiated. You didn't even give me any sort of papers or documentation on why they transitioned, because your claim was that they transition as a result of like peer pressure, like social pressures to transition. I just think that's outright false. I
You
think for
just
the
said
most
it
part,
yourself.
most
Oh,
trans people
Ma-
that I've encountered
Marco,
do not do
I,
that, and I don't know of any trans people that have ever transitioned as a result of people pressuring them to transition. I've never seen that happen before. But if you
Ma-
have a paper showing that's why they
so
transition, feel free
I
to
just reached.
provide.
I don't need the
But then
paper. I just made Tart
what
Vader.
you do need a paper because that's not
I
why they
need to
transition. I just
scream now.
demonstrated
I'm
that.
probably so Marco, this is why like you have to scream when people like have a mental block. This is why like I have now to go schizo mode to save this person. Tart, you said someone would look at himself in the mirror and then he will see himself, his self-perception as different from what he is. So he will say that he's a man, then he was like born a man, he will see himself as a woman. Okay, then he will start the transitioning process. And then when I asked you what is the definition of woman, you said, oh, roles, behaviors, and expectation by society. It seems that you already know that you transition to satisfy these behaviors and roles and expectations. You
That's
have
not
like to follow. You have to follow the conversation. If you
that's
are transitioning from the category, so the guy that you just said, he looks at himself in the mirror and he doesn't see himself matching. It seems that a man doesn't see matching with a man. He sees woman. He now transitioning to women. Okay, keep with me. What is the definition of woman? You just said, oh, it's like the what society have of expected behaviors, roles, and expectations. That's it. That's what you just said.
if you pay close attention,
we
there's gonna
just
be
we
a
just
difference.
defined women and we just
It's,
defined why people
if you
transition.
talk, I let you talk, I let you talk. So if you pay close attention, there's gonna be a difference between you seeing yourself in a role and seeing yourself in a specific way, and the culture and society seeing you in a specific role and in a specific way, right? There's two. The reason in which the reason why they transition has to do with self perception and self image. You're just incorrect that they're being pressured
Yeah,
by anyone else to
self-perception.
transition. Now,
Self-perception.
unless you can provide some evidence that this
Oh
is
my
why they
god.
say that, unless you can provide some evidence, I want scientific evidence. I don't want like anecdotal stuff or oh, it's definitional or something.
What is
I
self?
want actual Jesus fucking Christ, dude, shut the fuck up.
Oh, you are talking
Okay.
too
I
much.
want actual studies and evidence that it is the case that people, in fact, transition. And the reason they give that they transition is that there's some social pressure for them to transition. Because I think that's demonstrably just not the case. I do not think that that is the case. And your entire argument rests on this flaw. So
No, no,
or do you
no.
not
You
have
are grasping. You are grasping. Like
do
I've
you
already.
or do you not have evidence of this?
It's literally your brain. It's literally your brain and your words. So you said someone like sit in the mirror and have self-perception. What do you mean by self-perception? And how he gonna change his self-perception? How? How he's
I
gonna change his self-perception? And what do you mean by self-perception?
Yeah, so I just want to know, do you have scientific evidence that this is
Oh,
why
do
they
you
transition?
have?
It's a
Do
simple
you?
question. I
Yes,
can't
it's
answer that.
you. It's actually you. If this is recorded, you actually said how people transition. You just said it. You
I said
are like
how they
I'm using. I'm gonna
transition.
use your brain. I'm gonna like take your brain and like make it utter my arguments. I just already did that 20 minutes ago, but now I have to repeat it. You just said self-perception. Someone changing his self-perception. What
Yeah,
is the two categories of self-perception? Go ahead. A
but I
transgender.
just want I've asked a question and I really would like an answer to it. And I want it to be honest. Do you or do you not have evidence like scientific backing for what you said.
Okay. I already have it. It's there. But I don't need it because I have already made you utter why
Well,
people transition. So
where is
therefore, I just use logic and reasoning. And now, because like you are like not familiar, like you don't know what is like the trans topic. You are like way deep, and like I didn't start with you with sports and prisons. Like you're gonna get like fucked. Like
well,
it's
like
the
I'm
way it's
saying,
like I don't have.
you
Wait,
started
I don't
out
have.
with
I don't have. Wait. Let's make you like live long because I'm gonna destroy you later. I don't have the
you don't
studies
have
that prove.
scientific evidence. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I don't have.
So
Wait, I don't have it. I don't have the proofs. Okay, I don't have the studies that proves that people transition to satisfy expectations and roles. Are you
Perfect.
happy?
So,
Do you
yeah.
feel?
So,
Do you
I mean,
feel a win?
my argument is going to kind of rest on this, right? So, like, if
Do you
they're
feel a
not
win?
if they're transitioning as like it's not like a social pressure to transition, then I don't really see how one them transitioning would harm people who fill that role that aren't of that gender, because that's not even why they claim that they're transitioning to begin with. Like, that's just not their perspective. Like, their perspective is they're transitioning for like self image purposes. It has nothing to do with
Okay.
if anything, the
Okay.
culture is very heavily against transitioning. Like, and I think that's pretty just demonstrable by the way in which society tends to harm the trans person. But it just doesn't follow that because like society is hurting the trans person, that being trans is somehow harmful. And like every example that you've given of how it could be harmful is like it's almost like, well, I don't even see how like it harms the person who's you know fulfilling the role but not transitioning. It's like, well, they're not trans. They just happen to be fulfilling some subset of roles, but that doesn't make them trans. Transitioning has to do with like gender dysphoria and self perception. It's a totally different sort of topic. And so it's not as simplistic
Transitioning is
as
about
how
dysphoria.
first being.
Okay. So now we need to build like the axioms, like the ground basis for you to have this debate. You are not using gender identity, and like you are fucking up massively. You said self-perception. Someone want to change his self-perception as a trans. What do you mean by that? I would say that you mean that self-perception as a man, and then he want to change it to self-perception as a woman. Is this correct or not?
So the way that I would put it is that they are the way they're seeing themselves in the mirror does not align with the way in which they perceive themselves to be
Yes,
on the
and they
inside.
transition to what? They transition to what?
Either male or female, depending on the
Where?
instance.
Why male or female? It should be
I'm
man and
sorry,
woman.
sorry,
We are
man
talking
or
about
woman.
gender.
Sorry. Yeah, I did use the wrong
Okay,
word.
okay. They are changing man and woman. How now they are gonna transition to woman? Self-perception. I'm gonna use your words. Self-perception. Man, like born as a man, and now he's transitioning to the self-perception of a woman. How? What is the definition of woman?
Well, some of them go through like gender affirmation surgery. So, like for instance, they will change their primary sex characteristics,
That's
like they're having a penis
that's
or
sex.
changing a
Yeah,
vagina.
that's not gender. That's not gender.
Well, they're aligning they're trying to align their sex characteristics to their gender is the goal, because that's what's causing the dysphoria.
So you will not say, okay, so you will not say woman, so someone socially transitioning without doing any surgeries. And he will not changing anything biologically. How he's changing his self-perception from man
I I'm not really familiar with very many cases where people do this. It just
there
depends on
is
like how they want to go about doing it. Because
there
in
is no
where I'm from, usually what happens, the first steps is like changing their pronouns. So they'll start using different language around themselves and asking their friends and family members who love them to do the same. And it's usually a slow sort of process if they decide to transition. That is, not all trans people
so,
decide to
so
transition though. It's only
again, so you are not answering my question. Someone socially transitioning from the
uh-huh.
self-perception of man to the self-perception of woman. Oh, what is a woman and how he gonna move to that category? So when you
Well,
define that category, you can move to it. Without
he's trying
defining
to
what is a
align.
woman, you cannot move to it because it's arbitrary.
He's trying to align his self-image. So he's taking, like, say for instance, if he's looking in the mirror and he says, you know what, I'm a man deep down inside. Everyone else perceives me as a woman. What steps can I take to have them perceive me the way that I perceive myself? Because I see myself and I see a man. So they go through things like wrapping their chest or shortening their hair or They can also take hormone supplements, those sorts of things.
That's biological characteristics. I'm only talking about social. You just said short hair. So if someone,
Well,
if someone
those weren't
mentally
all
ill, if a
biological.
mentally ill trans person says, I'm gonna transition to become a
Mhm.
man and cut my hair, wait, and cut my hair. It seems that he is reinforcing, that person is reinforcing a bad stereotypes that only men should have short hair. A very, very absurd and laughable thing to transition for. No, if you wanted short hair, that trans person, I'm gonna tell him, hey, don't trans. I will tell you what you do. You're gonna have short hair, and any motherfucker that gonna, hey, all the short hair like should be for men, exclusive for men, you give them the middle finger. You tell that people that carry the bad stereotypes, tell them, fix your stereotypes. Not let the people, the victim of the stereotypes, change to satisfy these stupid stereotypes. It's like telling, like, it's like in the 20s, 30s, or the 40s, where like the white people had the stereotypes of that, hey, we are superior than black men. Imagine a black man says, oh, like, I am fucked. I just want to be superior. I'm going to dye myself white and become white. Now he's harming all the black people. Like automatically, all the black people are gonna like tell him, "Go fuck yourself." They're gonna hate him. Why did you like dye? Why did you cop out and like dye yourself to satisfy these harmful, stupid stereotypes? Do
I
you see
don't.
my point here?
No, I don't
The
even.
same thing with the short hair. The same thing with the like being aggressive or like team leader. All of these expectations should be destroyed. Not have people transition to satisfy them. Not having the definition of women of like being the aggressive or like the team leader or like the bread cooker or like the one that taking care of children. That is stupid. And there's like
That's
created
not
like
even
a
why they
substantial huge.
transition. I keep correcting you on this. Like,
I know. They do not transition.
not why they
No, but
transition.
like
They don't transition.
no, it's stupid.
Can you
No. They,
like you've been talking quite a
wait.
bit.
I
You've
need
been talking
30
quite a
seconds,
bit.
please,
You've
please,
been talking
please,
quite a
30
bit. I'd
seconds,
like
30
to leave
seconds.
you
I will
alone,
wrap it.
man.
Please mute him. Please
Dude,
mute him. 30 seconds. I will
you've
wrap
been
it.
talking.
So when you said short hair, no, 30 seconds. So when you said short hair, it is so stupid that you uttered it. That it's actually happening. There are actually people transitioning because of that bad stereotype, and we need to eliminate the people that carry that stereotype, not people transition to satisfy it. That's it. Go on.
Yeah, so that's not what I said. I didn't say they transition so that they can have their hair shorter. I said in the process of transitioning, they oftentimes shorten their hair. That's two different things, and it's just complete. It's kind of stupid that you even said that. Now, the more important part, though, is even if I granted like all of this like kind of nonsense about whether or not it's meaningful or not, and whether or not it has a purpose or whatever, I still haven't narrowed down the singular most important question I keep asking: how the fuck does this harm
I
society?
answered it like 7 times.
And it just wasn't a good answer. Like it was just a bad answer, right? Like it doesn't do any
Okay,
good
so
else.
no. It was like a perfect answer. So you don't say, so you don't lie here and you say I never got the answer. You got the answer 7 times. You are grasping. You like keep like going to this. I answered like 7 times. Like, what the hell do you want?
Yeah, you think
So
you said something about that it somehow affects the
add
other people.
stereotypes.
It causes bad stereotypes. So now, again, the weird part about this answer that I've pointed out that I still can't seem to get a good response on is the weird part about this answer is that the stereotypes around trans people, like the harm seems to be in every time that you mention it, the harm seems to be in the opposite direction from the society to the trans person. But the claim is the reverse, that the trans person is hurting the society. And so I'm asking, what's the harm
I answered
from
it
the trans
7.
individual to the
Okay.
society? Because the stereotype thing, that's from the society to the trans person, not the other way around. What's the harm from the trans person to the society?
Sorry, Marco. I'm sorry, Marco, but I have to do this. I answered this like 7 times. The trans person gonna hurt all the cis people when he cement the expectations. When
Yeah,
he
I don't think
transition, when he transition and he say, I'm gonna have short hair or like become like the taking care of babies, he is cementing these bad stereotypes to all the cis people that did not transition. And I have proved this with the black people. If like a black man in the 20s and 30s transition to become like a white to fulfill the expectations of superiority, like he's fucking all the black people by cementing that white people are actually superior.
Well, let's see some studies on that. Then.
Come on, like
Let's
seven
see some
times.
let let's see
He's
some
literally
actual
repeating the question seven.
let well, because it's a very bad answer. I'm trying to get you out here. But please, can you maybe provide some evidence that it's actually causing harm to cis people? Like I'd like maybe some studies or something. Do you have anything that actually that substantiates that, or have you just kind of come here with anecdotes? Because it seems like as far as I can tell, every time I ask for any amount of evidence of anything, you just say I just proved it, and then you haven't really substantiated anything. Like you haven't given me anything.
Why are we looping? So I already, in response to this, I said, oh, I have already used your mind and I used your tongue to substantiate my point. And then when you said, you give me points, I said, no, I don't have them right now. I don't care. I'm going to use logic and reasoning to prove my points. And I have made you 4 or 3 times to substantiate like why they transition. You just uttered it. I don't need studies. You just
I
uttered
didn't
it.
say that that's why I
There is no
transition. I hated it.
transition. There is no transition of self-perception of man to woman without like adhering to the expectations and roles.
Do you
Okay,
think we can
I
prove
want now
something?
to move. I want to have control of the conversation and now move to how gender and sex is like so conflated, and the labels of man and woman. It's actually not respected
Well,
in Canada and USA.
that's not even the main topic of the discussion. The topic was about the harm and
Why?
destruction it causes to society. Why are we stuck on whether or not whether or not you can make sense of the damn thing? Like I want to know what the harm is, and this harm doesn't seem substantiated. What is your evidence that it's fucking harmful? If you have evidence, if you don't have evidence of it, and you're saying you don't have evidence of it, then why the fuck would you make such a grandiose claim? It seems like if I don't have evidence that it's the case that this is causing harm to society, and it's just some sort of elongated anecdote that I'm giving, I'm going, oh, look, I've used logic and I'm proving it a priori. It's like you can't prove something. You can't prove this by a priori methodology when it's inductive by its very nature. You're going to need evidence to show that it is in fact harming these individuals. And you haven't been able to substantiate that. I've asked several times for substantiation. The reason I'm asking again is because it isn't substantiated. Substantiate the claim or shut the fuck up. I don't know. If you pick. Can you just answer this way? Let's just end it this way. Because if you don't have any evidence, then just say I don't have any evidence to provide for this, and we can just end the debate. Because I think that if you don't have evidence for the claim, that's the claim.
I answered it 8 times. So before it was 7 times, and I answered it 8 times through examples, through definitions, through meanings, through your own tongue. And I have made it
That was
through
evidence.
by giving like self-perception. So like how someone transitioned from self-perception through making you read. Well, like how someone transition, you said, oh, like from women, like, oh, they're gonna adhere to the behaviors, roles, and expectations. There is no other way to transition from man to woman without defining man or woman. I don't need studies, you dumb fuck. If you
Yes,
if
you
you
did.
already conceded, if you already conceded to like what is a man and a woman, it is these expectations.
The
You have
question is the
already gave
harm.
me. You have already 100%. So the study is 100%, and I have made you utter it. I now want to move to how sports in
No,
Canada and USA
I think if we can't
sports
substantiate the harm,
the sports
I think
sector.
this is
Wait,
the
wait,
point
wait,
where
wait,
we
wait. Stop,
take
stop.
the
Can you
time to
mute
end
him?
these
He's
things.
interrupting me. He's interrupting me. Can you
If
mute
we
him?
could, I'm
He's
actually
muting me. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. I was muted.
weird.
Wait, shut up.
I said
Shut up,
I'm
shut up. Oh, shh.
did you not hear me? I said we're going to go ahead and end things here because if you can't substantiate the claim, and you've just granted that you can't substantiate the claim, that you don't have evidence, and you've been like, I mean, look, if you don't have evidence of harm, then okay, cool. Then I don't know why you're making the claim because if you can't substantiate it, then there's no reason to continue the discussion. So I'm just going to go ahead and end it here because I do have to get back to work. But
He's looping. Okay,
I'll let.
so why I was muted and he? So this is my response. Okay, so he looped now, and I, I was looping. He's literally looping. I want a recording. I literally gonna send it to Vosh or like this.
Weird.
Okay, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry. Okay, so
Look,
now he
I'm ending
repeated,
this just
shut up,
because
shut up,
Mark.
shut up,
I'll let
shut the
you
fuck
go
up.
ahead
I
and end
need to
it.
make my point. Shut up, shut up. You talked like I was muted all the whole time. Shut the fuck up. I need the studies. Like literally, I made you give all the studies. So now I'm gonna substantiate you and the audience how gender and how we said like, hey, man, woman, a boy, girl. It's like the gender labels. And what is definition of gender? It's like actually characteristics away from like biological aspects. It is the behaviors, roles, and expectations. The sports category of, like, let's say, the Canadian football women team. They don't give a fuck about gender. Let's say someone socially transitioned from man to woman. Okay, can he participate in sports? In the women's sports? No. The sports sector will tell him, fuck off. You need to do biological characteristics. We don't believe in gender stupid shit. Women in sports means sex. Gender means sex. In sports, in prisons, in like many other functional huge sectors in society. This is literally bullshit. This is literally opium. Thank you. I want to see you like respond to this point.
Like I said, I was ending the discussion. If you don't have the substantiation of the claim, I don't.
Yes, you are ending the discussion. I'm so happy. God, I'm gonna like pay Marco like probably a lot of money to have like the recording of this debate.
Rar.
Thank you for this debate. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry, Marco, but like he's so stupid. I apologize. I apologize for being intense. I had to do it when he was like flip flopping. Like he never used gender identity. This is a pathetic sad. I'm gonna leave now. I wasn't happy that I was muted like 3 to 4 times. Thank you for having me. See you guys. Love you.
Was crazy the whole time. Like, holy shit, he's nuts. Good lord, he was insane. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? Like, I don't know. If you don't have evidence for your claim, I don't know why. I think he came into the room more interested in talking about like one specific part of his